The religion of the lore speaker is primarily practiced by the Revali tribes, but has been adopted by some free people and settlers from the coastal kingdoms who live in areas that overlap with their nomadic routes. It is even rumored that the king of Sparta still practices Loreism, although he was formally baptized into the church on the day of his marriage into the monarchy. Adherents of the speaker believe in all gods but worship none. They say that in the first days, heaven and hell were one, and there was no distinction between gods and demons. It was the creator of the Revali, his name long lost, who first suggested a set of basic principles for immortal beings. The principles were that 1. All sentient life should be made out of love and for its own sake. 2. Immortals should never revel in suffering or pain. And 3. Immortals were responsible for teaching their creations virtue, valor, and wisdom. Some immortal beings agreed with these principles and allied to become the present-day gods, while the ones who rejected them sundered heaven and became demons. After corrupting their half of heaven and turning it into a place of suffering and strife, the demons turned to blaming the gods for their failures and went to war with them. The war was a terrible thing that nearly destroyed the foundations of creation. The gods won the final decisive battle to turn back the demon hordes and cast them back into their self-created hell. After this battle, there was a great debate between the gods on if they should descend into hell to destroy their foe for eternity and eradicate any future attempts to seize heaven. In the end, it was determined that the demons would spend the lives of their mortal creations to the last, and if the gods were not prepared to do the same, they could not guarantee their victory in hell. Thus the gods came to an agreement with the demons. The demons could choose a single champion to duel the Revali god. If the Revali god won, then a third mortal plane would be created to further separate heaven and hell. Both the gods and demons would send their mortal followers to this plane where they would be guaranteed free will. As long as the mortal plane existed, it would make travel between heaven and hell impossible, and thus prevent another war between the two. If the demons' champion won, they would be allowed to flee back to hell without pursuit from the gods in heaven. They would keep their mortal slaves, and the two immortal planes would remain separated only by a thin veil. Little did the Revali god know that the demons' agreement to the duel was a trap. All of hell agreed that they had no warrior who could match his stoutness of heart or strength of arm. But in this agreement, they saw a way to exact vengeance on the Revali god, whose 3 principles they blamed for their ostracization. The demons' champion was Seguaza, the Cunning, a creature with the skull of a great bat and a scorpion tail that contained a distillation of her corruption. During the duel, Seguaza feigned surrender and stung the Revali god as he lowered his guard. She twisted and jerked her tail, breaking the barb point off inside of him, and immediately retreated to the lowest depths of hell. The tail could not be extracted without killing the Revali god, and if it remained within him, its poison would also one day see him dead. With no other choice, he descended to hell to find and kill Seguaza, and thus end her poison. But with the immortal plane being erected, this journey into hell was an exile, as even if he succeeded in his mission, he would not be able to return to heaven while mortals still lived. Many Revali say that Seguaza's cunning went beyond mere revenge, and she hopes that the Revali god will one day lose hope and give in to corruption. As a demon, he could reach out from hell to try to influence the descendants of his creations, and, if the mortal world ever fell to the dominion of hell, he could then open the way to heaven once more and act as hell's general. Thus the Lorekeeper remains as the only splinter of the Revali god left in heaven. He was created to guard the fortress meant to house the Revali dead and to recognize their deeds on the mortal plane. The Revali believe that the Lorekeeper, rather than weighing the individual merits, admits either entire families into heaven or allows them to fall to hell. This is one of the reasons that the importance of familial bonds and the focus on the welfare of the tribe has remained staunchly ingrained in the Revali people. While the Revali do not necessarily worship the Lorekeeper, they do venerate him, their lost god, and their ancestors. They have many spiritually significant rituals to keep this veneration enshrined within their culture. All Revali families keep a record of the births and deeds of their members woven into tapestries. A few members in each generation also memorize an oral history of the family and use these stories, together with the tapestries, to recite these histories at important events. Once a family line is ended, these tapestries are said to be carried by the spirits of all its members from limbo to heaven. There the Lorekeeper hears the oral histories and reads the tapestries. He can see through any lie, intentional or not, and at the end proclaims his judgments of the family's worthiness to enter heaven. What constitutes a family in Revali culture can be complicated. In some cases, a small tribe can constitute one family, tracking their origins to a singular distant ancestor, while other tribes are made up of many families. A person's family can also change due to events such as adoption or marriage. They may enter a new family, or two families may decide to merge. A falling out between heads of families can also lead to family lines breaking from each other and new lines beginning, with the previous one considered to have been ended. Generally speaking, a family starts when two people create a new family tree, either out of necessity or choice, and lasts until their ancestors no longer recognize them as the spiritual parents of their line. A single member of a family could also be stricken from a family tree and their tapestry destroyed if they commit a heinous enough act. This is a very rare and serious ritual. While it will save the family from being judged by that member's crimes, it's believed that, unless the exiled member convinces another family to adopt them, they will become a devil in limbo when they die. From there, they will attempt to tempt or possess their old kin to do evil, so that when the line ends, they can exact their vengeance in hell. Additionally, a family must also record how many times this ritual has been completed on their family tree. A clan whose family tree contains many counts of this ritual is considered demon-haunted. Other families will distrust them, and securing advantageous marriages will become difficult. These factors contribute to this ritual being more of an unspoken threat against committing terrible deeds than something regularly put into practice. While the Revali remain that recording their deeds and recounting them in story is incredibly important, it is believed that the Lore Keeper sometimes witnesses the most valorous or heinous of deeds even from heaven and records them there. This keeps most Revali from assuming there is no chance that their heroic acts or sinful deeds committed in darkness will not be revealed in the afterlife. Loreism is considered a form of paganism by Eamhna's major religions, but due to it acknowledging the existence of all gods, its practice is better tolerated by the coastal kingdoms.